There's a red button. There it is.
Okay.
I don't know. I really don't. So, how's everyone today? Hey, how are you? I'm going to speak with you just a moment after services. Reba is still in Birmingham. She'd probably be there a week or so, or maybe longer. I don't know, but way they have things, they were expecting him to die, to pass away, or well, we use the word expire. You all remember that? Or whichever term you want to use. I said he died, and I believe that's what it is. I think that's biblical. But anyway, a lot of things, or several things that were able to get done in that time. However, there are some major things that's got to be resolved before they can. Reba and her sister are partners, supposed to be, at least what my understanding is, they're partners in this and they're making decisions. And so maybe they'll be home in a week, she'll be home in a week, maybe 2, I don't know, we'll see. But I'm going to prod her along, you know, to come home. But she's still got to have that finished. Listen, the church here has been wonderful. And I want to thank the church for the beautiful flowers they sent to the funeral. I mean, they are really, really nice. In fact, far more than I expected. And I do, and Reba does, appreciate it. In fact, Reba said after the funeral, after things, said, you grab that and take it home. And I did, because it is absolutely beautiful, and I appreciate your kindness and your. But if you get an opportunity, just give her a call, a text, whatever. That would encourage her along the way she gets through this thing that she's doing. But thank you so much, and your kindness, and your prayers, and your cards, and your texts, and all those things. It helped tremendously for Reba. And but actually, he was like a father to me. I lost my father in my mid-teens. And about the time I needed my father, he was gone. And J.D. helped fill in a lot of things that helped me along the way, and I appreciate it very, very much. All right, who's sick that we need? How about Art and Edwina? What's going on with them? Pardon? They got COVID? Man.
Dot's husband had an accident last night.
Who had an accident?
He fell out of his truck, and when he did, I don't know what happened, but he was falling, his foot slipped, he was falling, and he tried to grab the gear stick or something to hold on to, and it knocked it out of gear, and the door was open. The truck rolled back, it bent the door back.
No.
And he fell. I don't know if it was the part of the carport, but anyway, it bent his door back. He can't close the door. And this morning it was his hand and his ankle that were really hurting. But he's okay. But
You go to the hospital and check it out?
No.
I'm going to have to get him by the ear and pull him to the hospital.
No, he was up walking last night.
Okay.
So he's okay, but he's just real sore.
Okay. Yes.
Andy fell and hurt his shoulder.
Who did?
Andy.
Oh, really?
He's really hurting, I understand. He'll probably have to go to the doctor tomorrow.
Andy Peterson. Did not know. Well, good. All right. Anybody else that we need to mention? That we need to pray for right now? Okay. Then, Brother Caleb, would you lead us in prayer, please? Yes. I didn't see your hand.
I'm sorry. I just remembered. Chrissy reminded me. Tom has COVID.
Tom.
My brother, Tom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's better, but he's had COVID. So they probably won't be here today.
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. You know, they used to have like 14 days. I think they cut it down to like, no, 5 days? Well, we like the 5 days better, don't we? Yes, ma'am.
Pat Thomas is still having trouble with a urinary infection, kidney infection.
That's getting serious.
Yeah, she's going back on IV antibiotics one day this week. Wow.
Ooh,
Oh, I'm
that's,
sorry, Tom.
yeah. Anybody else? Okay, broke it.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this first day that we've been given to come and study your word and worship you. Please be with all the sick mentioned, help them recover and get better. Please watch over us, keep us safe today. And pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, so I left my thumb drive at the house. I was in a hurry, and so somebody back there told me that I'm going to have to fill in the blanks. So there's the blank, so I'll fill it in. We'll see if it works or not. If I recall correctly, we were talking about the myths in marriage that people have. We talked about that a little bit last week, did we not? And I want to review just a couple, and then I one that I need to finish. I got started in it, and I kind of hurried along with it, and I should not have, but I did. But we're talking about the myths, and we're talking about the divorce rate. In fact, I believe the divorce rate today throughout America is over 60%. That's the last count that I got. Now, Brother Tom mentioned last week, we probably have fewer than we did because people are not getting married. You know that, right? They decided that this will work. And I mentioned to you last week, and I meant to look it up, but I didn't, that common law of marriages, I don't know what made one legal. I think somebody mentioned to me after the class that for 7 years thereabout, they had to call each other husband and wife. This is my husband, this is my wife, and so forth. I did not hear that, but I'm going to look into it. But it doesn't make any difference now because the common law of marriage in Georgia is not valid. And so anybody who thinks it does, one needs to go back and replan their life. So we want to do things right, living together. I think Sharon mentioned a word last week, or 2 words, that it kind of put a stigmatism on it, you know. It's not a bad term, except it's been identified with that lifestyle. And it made a lot of people embarrassed. It's like the word ignorant. Say, you're ignorant. Is that a bad word? Well, the connotation of the word is bad, but the meaning of the word is not. The word ignorant simply means you don't know. That's all it simply means. But the connotation of it has developed in the sense that that person can't even think for himself, basically, or herself. They can't figure out things. And there may be people out there like that. I'd rather stay out of that territory. So, yes, living together is not a very good thing. I do not know of any statistics I ever found and that made, well, let me change that. Let me do it this way. There are some, and I don't know what, remember the age, I don't know the percentage type, but it has been said that every once in a while, if you allow me, some people who live together stay together. But the majority of people, it does not help the relationship. It does not help their feelings. They do not get to know the person. In fact, I think a lot of it is being used or using each other for some benefit for themselves. And then when they get tired of them, My wife doesn't like me to use what I'm about to use. It's kind of like chewing gum marriages. You know what that means? Of course you do. It means that when the flavor's gone, you get another one. And that's basically what happens to a lot of people. And it happens in that type of relationship as well. We talked about having an affair or committing adultery, fornication. You can use the word fornication, but generally it's used in premarital relationships. But you see a lot of that. People do not.
Bobby,
Yes.
over here.
Yes,
Hi.
ma'am. Thank you.
I was going to say, when they living together, they say marriage is just a piece of paper, right?
That's right.
Well, so is money, but you work hard for that, right?
Say that last one again.
I said marriage is just a piece of paper, but so is money, and you work hard for that, right?
Whoa, that's a good one. That's a real good one. And that's what it takes, is work. Now, a lot of you, some of you, several of you, yes, sir.
Bobby, I think that one of the big things that's happened with marriage too is the mores of society have changed, not for the better. Our parents, you absolutely got married, period, whether you wanted to or not. And now today, most of the parents don't care.
That's correct. And I'm going to be careful how I say this. There's a lack of commitment and discipline in our society today. Commitment means little or nothing. In fact, I would dare say that a lot of young people don't even know what the definition of commitment means. Really, from what I've seen. Maybe you've seen something different than I have. But commitment, listen, is very, very crucial. Commitment not only goes to your marriage relationship, to your kids, but to the church, to going to heaven, living a godly life. Commitment across the board. Sometimes we don't see the commitment. We don't teach our children commitment. I know used to. I don't know about today. I haven't been out on any football field, basketball field, or court, or any baseball field. But let me tell you, when used to, and that's reaching back several years now, that when you joined a team, you stayed with the team no matter what. You just didn't walk off. You committed to this. And parents made the kids stay with it because it is a commitment. Yeah, it's tough. Okay, you can go up to the coach and say, I really don't feel like playing today. I don't need to play today, or whatever it is. You just need to stay with the team, support your team. That applies to the church. People get puffed up over little nothing, and they leave. Listen, if I'm reading my Bible right in Matthew 5, Matthew chapter 15, in other places like Ephesians and Colossians and so forth, our responsibility is to work out problems. Is that right or wrong? In marriages, you're going to have problems. I don't know of and people can say they have, but I think their memory loss is a little worse than mine. But let me tell you something, people have problems. I don't care who you are, you're going to have problems. It may be that somebody, what we used to call henpecked. What does that mean? Well, you're not going to have a problem because you're going to do whatever it says, keep peace. Yes, sir.
What she said.
By doing what she said. Well, sometimes we need to do what she says, right? And sometimes she needs to do what you say. Is that right? And it has to be right, godly, and fair. So we need to discuss that. Now, I was talking about independence, and I really didn't get finished, and a reason why it's brought up, I was reminded of a couple of things while we were in Birmingham, and here it is. I said last week about the checkbook. You remember what I said about the checkbook? Okay. I think I'm going to adjust that just a little bit. I think you should have one checkbook unless it's a business. I think so. However, sometimes one of the husband or wife can take advantage of the checkbook. Is that a possibility? I know of a woman who is divorced today, nice person, very deeply religious. Saw her this past, and she is divorced because she got married to this man, which had a lot of money, a good bit of money, I should say. And she took the checkbook and started spending it on her kids. Now, he has kids too, you know. And she started spending the money. Listen, you can't do that. You cannot do that. I've seen marriages dissolve. I can think of another right here in Georgia. I tried to help a lot. And they're dissolved because the attention wasn't on the marriage, it was on their kids. Yes, sir.
I think there's circumstances where you have two people in household working that spouse could have their own or should have their own checkbook.
Okay.
One major checkbook paid most of the bills out of, and then the other working spouse needs to have their own checkbook. They shouldn't have to come to their husband to ask for money. And that's my personal...
Or to the wife.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be an understanding about money, that it is our money, not my money.
No matter
Not
whose
our-
checkbook it's in.
Not our house, not my house, but our house. Whatever else you want to use, it's got to be understood that you're in this together is the main point that I'm trying to get across at this particular point. Yes, ma'am.
John and I had two joint accounts.
Okay.
In other words, he could write out of my account or I could write out of his account. We did not usually unless it was a emergency situation. But he could, if I had money, he had money, you know, if you know, whatever. But we had two joint accounts.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I do. Now, you may not think it's fair, but I think it's fair. I really do. You know, we're not in this for me. We're in this for us. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's whatever works. Because
Okay.
when we got married, we tried this separate one, and it didn't work because I like to save money, and I was used to my husband always taking me out. So if we had date night, he paid for it. And he's like, you always save your money, and I can't save any money. And it was causing problems. So then we switched to one joint account. So that worked for us. A lot less fighting when it was our money, like you say. But whatever works. So if you do something that's not working, then you need to change.
Okay. Now, let me add one little footnote to this, if you don't mind. Every house, every family should have and must have a budget. Really. I think, in fact, I've experienced it myself, that if you have a budget and you stay with the budget, you're going to have money later on because you got to stay in the budget. You can't go to the grocery store with a budget and say, well, I'm going to spend $100 this week on food. And you go in there and you pay $125 for food. Guess what you did? You went out of budget. Hey, let's do it this way. You're going to spend $100 a week, say, on groceries, and you go in and spend $101. What have you done? went over the budget. And the reason, if you fudge in that area, you're going to fudge in other areas. You got to discipline yourself to stay within those bounds, or else you're going to have some major problems. And budgets are really important, very important. It disciplines you how you spend your money. And that's one of the areas that we're talking about, being independent and having a check and so forth, that I have found that causes a lot of problems in marriages. Yes, sir. Hey, somebody gets to ride the horse.
Bobby, I wonder sometimes if we don't have more problems with credit cards than we do checkbooks, because they're right there at all times. Where sometimes check is a little more difficult than credit cards. Credit cards get a lot of people in trouble. Also, there's a lot of anger and hostility in families. Like this past week, I read of 2 accounts, one in Utah, I think the other in North Carolina. Both wives, I think, presented their husbands with divorce papers. And the husbands and they were married, that one of them had 4 children, I think the other had 3 or 4. And so they got angry. The one in Utah got angry, stayed away for 2 or 3 days, came back, killed her, killed all the children, and killed her mother. And then the one in North Carolina, the same thing happened. So there's a tremendous amount of hostility and anger in families, not only families, in business relationships and all. And whether the COVID period of time has brought this about, I don't know, but really going to have to work on that.
You got valid points. In fact, the checkbook is really an obsolete item today, almost, really. We have credit cards, debit cards, work basically the same. It's got a little different outcome or results on both of them, but they're easy. You just reach in your pocket and say, oh, I see that, let me get them. Pull out the old Discover card and click it, and then you say, go down the road a little bit. I think I get one of those too. And guess what? You got a bill that'll run out your head. You know, Christmas time is big, and people put a lot of their Christmas on the credit card. Listen, learn to pay cash for everything. Or if you do use your credit card, pay it off at the end of the month or whenever the day is due. Pay it off, okay? Because it can accumulate, accrued, whatever word you want to use there, some debt you can't get out. So, got to control it. Used to, they would say, Larry Burkett, you ever heard of Larry Burkett? He and Steve Diggs, y'all know Steve Diggs? He's a member of the church up in Juliet, Tennessee, is that right? If I remember correct. And he has a financial thing, and I've been through it. It's very, very good. And he would say, listen, if you can't control the credit card, take it and put it in ice, in water, put it in the refrigerator and let it freeze. That give you to melt. You don't want to start chocolate, break it to pieces. So you have to let it melt. That gives you time to reconsider what you are about to do. And that's not a bad idea. Yes, sir.
I was going to say something about this earlier, and then the moment passed away, but I think I can bring this up again now. You talked about living together, and you talked about the divorce rate, and you talked about marriage, and you talked about money.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the fact that God is not God. Something else is God. You know, when you go back 60 years ago at the beginning of the Great Society, what happened is that the government said, we'll take care of you. And that's where a lot of the single mothers and things like that came about, because the government was going to take care of them if they had children out of wedlock. And that became an accepted practice. Christians tried to work against that, but it's gotten to the point now where we as a church are real accepting of a lot of things we didn't used to be accepting of. And it's not just that we're accepting of them, it's that we don't speak against them, and number two, we don't show what we should do as children of God. We're talking about the money aspect of it. You know, it's not that the budget was so bad, it's that they didn't have a base. They didn't have a godly base that showed them that we need to work this out on a godly level. We can't work this out on a worldly level. Am I making sense?
Yes, I understand completely. Now, what I'm talking about, and it's a lot more out of the church. I'm talking about in the church, what I'm dealing with up here, except an example that I gave over in Birmingham. That was it. But most of them in general I'm not going to use any names, but I'm telling you, the problem is in the Lord's church. And we're doing little or nothing about improving it. Okay? I personally believe we need to teach our children about what it means to be married. You know? Not just the immoral thing, but how do you treat one another in marriage? Yes, sir.
Well, Bobby, I'm maybe a little hard-nosed than some, but I have what's called the talk that I have with my grandchildren when they reach the age and they get engaged or get close, that what happens if they don't get married. It's pretty clear as that. And in our family, it does not go over good to not be married.
Well,
and to be with God, to get them to understand what it says in the Bible about being married.
Well, that may work. I don't know. I don't know what the outcome is going to be with them in the future, but I do know this, and we've got to keep this in mind. Look around the room today. What do you see? Pardon me?
Old married people.
That's right. That's right. What we need in the church, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say, we need, in our effort to get people to come, we need to work and invite and encourage young people to the services. Because if we don't have young people, we're going to grow, and I'm going to die one of these days. I know that, okay? But so are you. Who's going to take your place? Is that a fair question? Who's going to take your place? There are empty Church of Christ, buildings in the state of Georgia. Brother, one's up there close to where Brother Ed hunts. I don't see him here. Okay. Washington, that's right. There's another one over in Dallas, Georgia. Here, on the east side. And there are others who we can mention somewhere down south, somewhere. I forgot where they are. But let me tell you, the reason for it is we're not trying to get young people to go to church. Okay? And we need to.
Yes, the ones over there, what happened was COVID killed them. After COVID, they never recovered ever one person after COVID.
Yes, and that's a real problem. Here's something we want to keep in mind. Magnolia Messenger. Y'all ever get the Magnolia Messenger? Good magazine. It really is. They had in there last year, I believe it was about June. I'm getting off subject, I know that, but it still has to do with the family, okay, in an indirect way. But they had an estimate that this congregation in Mississippi, and I forgot which one, you can dig it out of the Magnolia Messenger, that they're closing down because we can't get enough people to come, we don't have a preacher and all that kind of stuff. Well, Magnolia Messenger, if I remember correctly, took it upon themselves to go up and start that church again and got them a preacher. And it's working today. You got to have people who care. You got to have parents who care about their children. You got to have parents who care about their grandchildren. Listen, there's no other way than going to heaven than this right here. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but through or by me. And we need to teach our children that and keep it in mind. I got off subject a little bit, but that's a little bit a deep concern of mine. And I hope it's a concern of yours too. I know that there are some here that we have college-age kids to come and be with us, that you do well in encouraging them to be here and helping them any way you can, and we need to do that. But we need to do more. Listen, I guess it was 10 unfaithful members of the church that I saw this past week. 10. I went up to each one of them. I said, I need a favor. They said, oh, sure. I need you back in the church. Would you do that for me? That's all you have to do. You know? Get them thinking. Don't demand. People don't like to be pushed. They like to be led. And there's a difference. Your children, when they rebel, they don't like to be pushed. There are different personalities in every family, children. If you got one child, it's got a personality. But if you got two, they're going to be basically two different personalities. 3, all of them are going to be different. And some of them are going to rebel, and you can lead them back, but usually you can't force them back. Is that about right? Am I wrong? Okay? You just have to keep being good and kind, inviting, and working with it. And that all came out of being independent. Okay, let's go on a little bit further. I'd like to wrap this up because, again, if your spouse knows, if you love your spouse loves you, they will know, or he or she will know, what you want or what you need. What do you think of that one? That's right. Exactly right. You know, here's a man's usually, the wife comes in, she's all sit and won't talk. She turns her back to him and all that kind of stuff. And you say, honey, what's wrong? Nothing. What's going on? Nothing. And sometimes you do that for a long time. And there's nothing. Well, generally, in a lot of cases, men just walk away. Okay, it's nothing. Okay, I can't do anything with nothing. So they just turn around, walk away, and go piddle or whatever they're doing, clean the yard or what, you know. They just move on. Nothing generally to women means something. And you need to wait for the answer. Okay? They may not feel like giving the answer right then when you ask it. But later on, they may come up and start saying something. And if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss that nothing. That make sense? You've got to listen. Men are not in the listening business. Yes, sir.
A lot of times the man, he'll get distracted with life, and he won't pay attention to what he's supposed to be paying attention to. And the woman, they don't usually get distracted.
Yeah, they're pretty well focused. There are exceptions to both. But generally, that is a correct answer. I like Gary Smalley. You ever heard Dr. Gary Smalley? He's a marriage counselor thing. And he says what we were talking about right here. He says, sometimes when your daughter or your wife comes in and start talking, and he's talking and talking and talking, you just get distracted and wonder what the next nail's going to fall out of the roof, out of the ceiling, and you miss everything they say. He said, this is where, but listen, you need to, when they start talking, let them talk. Do not interrupt. Men's ready to fix it. There may not be any fixing to it. It may be she needs to be heard. And men need to be heard as well. Okay? Listen without interrupting. And that will resolve a lot of problems. One of the keys to, let's go back to that. One of the main problems in troubled marriages is what? That's right. Communication. Okay? You talk a lot when you first get married, and after a while you start doing this and doing that, and then pretty soon you're just existing in the house and you don't talk. And it creates anger, resentment, suspicion. You don't need that. You need to be open. You need to talk. You have a problem, talk about it. Tell them, hey, look, I got a little problem. I need your help. Really? Do that with Reba. I said, Reba, I got a little problem. I need your help. And she listens to me, and I listen to what she says. And if it's good, okay, let's do that. Or let's modify that a little bit. I didn't say don't do it. I said let's modify it. There's a difference. Okay? So they do not know unless you talk, communicate. And that is a major thing. You don't know until somebody tells you what's going on. I like 1 Corinthians chapter 2 with this particular point that I want to make. Turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 2, and I want to read something that Paul is dealing with inspiration, but however, there's a point to be made in this particular text. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, and I think I'll start with verse 9. But really the context starts with verse 1, but my point is verse 9 through 13, okay? Then he says, but as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for them who love him. But God has revealed, mark that word, revealed them to us through his Spirit. For the Spirit searches all things, yes, the deep things of God. For what man knows the things of man except the Spirit of man which is in him? Even so, no one knows the things of God except the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might know the things that have been given to us freely been given to us by God. These things which you also speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teaches, but the Holy Spirit teaches, but comparing spiritual things with spiritual. Somebody read. All right, it's got battery. It's got battery. It's going. It woke up. Anybody?
This is what we speak, not in words taught to us by human wisdom, but in words taught by the Spirit, expressing spiritual truth and spiritual words.
Okay, what is that saying? Is that verse 11? Let me look at my verse 11. I may have misread it. For what man knows the things of man except the Spirit of man which is in him? Even so, no man knows the things of God except the Spirit of God. So what does that mean? Was that verse 11?
I couldn't see good. I read verse 13.
Hey, Steve, I can do the same thing. And have done the same thing.
My folks wouldn't sit down on my
Well, we'll get them adjusted, won't we? All right. Anybody, what does that verse mean? This is a biblical principle that can apply to our marriage and relationships and our family and the church. What is it? What is he saying?
I don't know what you're thinking until you tell me.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Brother Charles. He nailed it closely. How are you going to know what the mind of God unless he has not given it to us so we know what he wants us to do? How do you know what the church needs unless the church tells you? What can the church do for you unless you tell the church? What can the parent or the husband, wife, and the family, what can they do to help you unless you know? You got to talk about it. You got to express it. You got to reveal it so they will know it. Does that make sense? Very, very important to our society. You know what really bothers me? I'll be talking to somebody, trying to make a point, and they turn around and just walk off. What does that tell you? Don't want to hear what you got to say. I got something else I want to do. You know, there's more important stuff I want to hear. Listen, we need to show respect to our families and to everybody by listening what they have to say. We're too big. Here's one. If you don't listen, you jump to conclusions. Really. Before you can get your sentence out of your mouth, they already got an answer. And they didn't hear the rest of the story. You need to hear the rest of the story. Now listen, I've been guilty. And a burnt chicken is afraid of fire. What does that mean? Anybody know? Huh? Been through it, and I don't want to do it. I got hurt. I don't want to get hurt again. And that's what happens. We need to listen to one another and not draw conclusions until we hear all the information. I guess, did the bell ring? Yes, sir.
We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Supposed to listen more when you talk. Right?
That's what Brother Guy Wood says. He does in the book of James. Very good book. If you want to read it, it's very good. Commentary on the book of James. He did a fine job on that. And that is correct. Okay, class, thank you for your attention. I'll try to get into the other next week. I think I got a little off the subject, maybe a lot off the subject, but thank you for listening.